around the time that I had just become a coach with TFM. And I thought, oh my gosh, this book needs to be required reading for everyone who is on this journey of fasting and eating the way that their body functions best. I thought everyone needs to read this book. Welcome back to another episode of the Fasting Method podcast. This is Coach Terri Lance, and I am coming to you today with a solo episode. Some of you who have listened to the podcast, or if you've ever been a member of TFM community, you know that I am really interested in self-help books. Almost any topic we discuss, almost any question that comes up, I often come back to something I have read or more accurately, have listened to over the past few years. I recently came across something on YouTube, actually. It's by an author of a book that I enjoyed. His name is Mark Manson, and some of you may have read his book, The Art of Not Giving a Bleep. And I read his book many years ago, and I really enjoyed it. So I thought I would watch his video. What he does is he summarized 33 of the books that he thinks are the most influential and important to read. In this video, number one, and I don't know that they're ranked in order, but number one is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, if you have ever listened to me, you probably at some point have heard me talk about this book because it is one of my favorites. I found when I first listened to it, I was driving across the island, the big island in Hawaii. I had a couple hours on my hands with nothing really to do but enjoy beautiful scenery. And I listened to this book. And every couple of minutes, I just had to kind of stop and think, oh my gosh, yes. This was around the time that I had just become a coach with TFM. And I thought, oh my gosh, this book needs to be required reading for everyone who is on this journey of fasting and eating the way that their body functions best. I thought everyone needs to read this book. Oh my gosh, we need a book club. And I was just having like all of these thoughts at that time. I've referred to this book often. I know Coach Lisa has covered many habit books, and one of the most popular ones in my mind is Atomic Habits. And I know that many listeners have read it, and I know that many people in our community have read it. So I wanted to talk about 3 of the main points from Atomic Habits as Mark Manson summarized them in his video clip that I found. I think he's spot on that these are 3 of the most important takeaways. And if you don't ever read the book, if you are a believer in too long, don't read kind of responses, it's okay. I've got you covered, because I want to talk about 3 things that I hope everyone who has read the book takes away with them and implements into this journey, into their weight loss journey and into their health journey, because I think they are fundamental to what TFM really wants to help you know how to do. Obviously, we believe very much in teaching you about fasting, how to do it safely, how to build your fasting muscle, how to decide how much fasting to do and when to fast, and all of those things. We also want you to learn how to eat in a way that supports your fasting, supports your health, supports your weight loss goals, and supports you physically optimally. So those 2 really important factors. But beyond those 2 things, we also really want you to understand behavior change. Because without significant behavior change, knowing about fasting and knowing about proper nutrition won't get you there. So we spend a lot of our emphasis at TFM. I spend most of my emphasis in most of my meetings focusing on behavior change, habit change. And it's a very common theme in our community. So let me go through the 3 takeaways that Mark Manson identified about James Clear's book, so that, again, if you have read it, you can remind yourself of these key points. And if you haven't read it and you don't decide to read it, maybe you will after you hear me talk about it. But if you don't decide to read it, you will have the 3 biggest points that I hope you carry with you. So the first takeaway, small lifestyle changes compound over a period of time. Now, many of us think when we want to change something, when we want to learn a new skill and develop a new habit, that it should happen quickly. We think that we should be able to lose 20 pounds. We should learn how to fast in a week. We should be able to do anything quickly. And I think this takeaway is so important because making actual change, sustainable change that actually moves you to your goal and then allows you to sustain those results, happens or develops over a period of time. I like the focus here on it has to be a lifestyle change. Just learning to fast, to do it short term, isn't really going to get you into this long-term lifestyle. The compounding portion of this takeaway, I think, is so important. If I think about any one given fast, it really doesn't mean that much. It's fasting consistently. It's doing 2 or 3 fasts a week. It's eating appropriate meals every time in a week that it's time for you to eat a meal. It's changing our thought processes about how we feel about what we're eating, if we feel deprived or if we feel nourished or satiated. It's about how we talk to ourselves. These lifestyle changes compound over a period of time. They're not like a light switch that we just flip on and now they're on. And if we don't want them anymore, we just turn them off. Actual changes, significant changes that we want to make in our life have to be approached by looking at the small steps, the daily things that we're going to do, and that they compound over a period of time. One of the things that James Clear points out in Atomic Habits is that in order to be better at something, in order to reach a goal, you can't just expect to do the thing and achieve the goal. Instead, you really want to focus on the power of the tiny gains that you make. And in order to make tiny gains, you have to work on being better, 1% better, 100 days in a row, not 100% better in a day. Nothing happens that quickly. So again, it's that power of the tiny gains that is really important there.
Have you ever said, I know exactly what I need to do to lose weight, I just can't make myself do it? If so, you are not alone. But have you considered this? What if making yourself do it is exactly what you need to learn how to do? In my experience, not only as someone who has personally lost 80 pounds, but also as someone who coaches clients to lose weight, that's exactly the missing piece of the weight loss puzzle that is keeping people from reaching their weight loss goals. My name is Heather Shuker. I'm a coach with the fasting method. And if you would like me to teach you what I know about weight loss and how to stay consistent, you're in luck. This July 15th, I will be teaching a weight loss workshop, a 3-day workshop. I'm going to be covering the principles, the pitfalls, and the protocols necessary for sustainable weight loss. I hope to see you there.
The next big takeaway is we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. Now, many of us spend a lot of time figuring out what our goals are, or we kind of haphazardly decide on a goal, like, oh, I want to lose 45 pounds. And we just think that by focusing on that goal, setting up, I'm going to weigh myself and I will rise to the level of my goal. I will work hard enough to reach that goal, the 40 pounds, the 75 pounds, the 150 pounds that we need to lose. That somehow, just by choosing the goal, we are going to rise to the occasion and accomplish it. But instead, the reality is that we fall to the level of our systems. What systems we put in place will determine whether we actually reach our goals. So, what systems are you putting into place for yourself? Are you putting into place systems that make the change actually almost impossible to not do? It makes the change inevitable if you put the right systems into place. If every night I sit down on the couch with my snack food with me, because my favorite way of relaxing is watching, television with snacks. If I continue that as my main approach, I'm going to struggle to reach my goal. I have a lofty goal, but I can't reach it because I have not put into action, I haven't created those systems that support me. If you are someone who has looked at maybe starting a morning routine, what do you need in your morning to get your day really going in the direction you want it to go? Do you want to spend some time focusing on your intentions, setting your plans, creating your food plan, creating your fasting plan, and other goals that you have in your life that you're working on? How are you going to ensure that you can follow through on those plans? Do you need to take a lunch with you to work if your plan is to eat a meal during your workday? Do you need to have meals ready so that when you come home, you have something available? Do you need to set up social gatherings that involve allowing you space to fast or the option to eat food that supports your body with people in a social group? Are you getting support? Have you set up a system of support? Are you listening to this podcast as part of that system? Do you listen to it regularly? If you find an episode that you really resonate with and it covers something that you really need to keep reminding yourself, have you listened to it more than once? Are you a member of the TFM community? Have you joined where we have all of our resources, where we have live meetings 6 days out of the week that you can attend? And if you're unable to attend them, we record many of them so that you can watch them later in the week. Are you talking with people in the community? Are you sharing? Are you joining the forum and writing messages in there? Are you tracking your progress? Do you have a system of monitoring your goals or monitoring the steps you're taking toward reaching your goals? These are the systems that if we don't put them into place, we are not going to reach our goals. Remember, we fall to the level of our systems. If we don't have a well-curated system to help us, we're not going to just rise to that goal. We're not going to accomplish complex things. We're going to fall to the lack of development of our systems. You know that saying that failing to plan is planning to fail? To me, that fits in here. If I don't know that I have food that supports me and is available when I'm ready to break my fast, it's like the wild, wild west. I might choose anything to eat. I might go off track. Instead, planning, having something already chosen that I know will support me in breaking my fast. So again, creating your systems to help you reach your goal. Otherwise, the goal is just this lofty ideal that really has a small chance of being realized without that good system. I think one of the challenges about setting our goals and wanting something that is really important to us is that many of us still work under the kind of erroneous belief that it's about having ambition and putting in a lot of hard work and automatically goals will happen. It's really not just about having ambition or doing good effort. It's about having systems that support us to take the steps regularly. Going back to the first takeaway, it's the small steps every day. It's that improvement, that consistency that happens day to day. Not being super ambitious and taking it all on in one day or 1 week. It doesn't happen that way. And now the third takeaway is one that you have heard me talk about in the podcast. If you've listened over time, if you're new to the podcast, this one may be new to you, but it's one that I think is so important. And that is, habits don't stick unless we alter our identities. Habits don't stick unless we change the way we think about ourselves, the way we interact with other people, the choices that we make based on our values. We have to work on changing our identities. I think this is one of the things that has always made me so much of a James Clear fan, is that he really emphasizes this part, that if you want to make something a long-term lifestyle change, you have to start to identify with it. You have to change how you talk about yourself and think about yourself. One of the examples I always share is that I am someone who eats low carb, quite low carb, most days and most meals. So when a friend says to me, "Hey, Terri, let's go out to dinner," I say, "Okay, I'm not worried because I'm going to figure out what to eat wherever we go." Now, there are a few types of places that I struggle more, a little harder to find good options. But if my friends say to me, "Terri, hey, let's go to that Mexican restaurant," and then they sometimes stop and say, "Oh, that's right, you probably can't eat there." I say, "No, I can eat there," because I identify as someone who eats a low carb approach to eating. So when I go to that restaurant, I know what I'm looking for in that menu. I know what substitutions to make because it's part of how I see what I eat. It's how I see myself as far as what I eat. Just this evening, I went to a social gathering in our neighborhood. And you can imagine it's the beginning of summer. It was a going away party for some neighbors, and all of the food that was brought in, super highly processed cookout kind of gathering foods. But I know myself. I am someone who eats low carb when I'm eating a meal. So I made it a meal. I chose the things there that worked for me. If I had known that there wouldn't be enough food that worked for me, I would probably eat something that fit my approach prior to going. And then once I got there, just held my sparkling water and walked around and talked to everyone. I may have avoided the meal because my identity is so clear to me that this is the way I eat. And if that isn't available there, then I will make a different decision. But here's the challenge. If it's not part of the identity that you're creating, it's very easy to be kind of tugged off of your plan because you don't see options. You don't see how to make it fit. And so you just kind of slide into the old behaviors that you're actually working on eliminating or decreasing. So if you aren't working on your identity, it's really hard to make something stick. Let's say, for example, you want to be more physically active. Now, some people might say, try to stick with something that fits you, not try to pretend to be something else. So, for example, I like to do some physical activity things. I don't consider myself an athlete. That is not my identity. But I am someone who likes to bike. I am someone who enjoys some hiking. I would call it walking with maybe some hills. And I'm someone who enjoys skiing. So I don't have to identify as an athlete. I need to identify as someone who does active things because I enjoy them and I value taking care of my body in those ways. If I said, well, I hate it, there's nothing about this that fits me, but I have to do it, it's going to be very hard for me to create a lifestyle change or a habit out of that behavior. So working on changing your identity, how you see yourself, how you talk to yourself. Are you still using terms to describe yourself that are negative and hold shame and blame? Are you calling yourself a fat person? Is that serving you well? If I continue to call myself that And trust me, I don't, because that phrase just has so many negative connotations for me and such negative impact. But if you are someone who is calling yourself that, that is your identity. Why would you do a behavior that's going to change that if that is your identity? Maybe you need to change that identity to, I am someone who values taking care of my body. I am someone who is developing a fasting lifestyle. I am someone who is learning ways to nurture my body so that it can work well and do all of the things that I ask of it. These are some ways to work on changing your identity. Another example that comes up often in our community is people really struggling with something that they feel like they're grieving or have to give up is they identify as a foodie, meaning sometimes maybe I don't even understand what that means, but I think it means I love food. I love decadent food. I get a lot of my pleasure from food. And one of the challenges is that for many people who hold that identity, they aren't necessarily healthy choices. They are kind of more recreational choices, like I said, decadent choices, foods that for many of us are causing insulin resistance, are causing us to be hungrier and have more cravings, causing prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, leading to serious health concerns. But that identity of being a foodie stands out as something we are known to our friends and to our family. So I have encouraged people when they come to me with that to change how they say it. And actually one person in our community, he described in a meeting that he was changing that label. Instead of identifying himself as a foodie and all of that kind of connotation that came along with that, he was changing his identity to being a healthy. And I just love that it's this focus on, I am someone who supports my health. I'm someone who makes choices geared toward my health. And I think in order to create that as an identity, we have to value it. We have to embrace it. We have to make it something that we do regularly. We have to think of ourselves that way. And I think when it comes to this example with food, I think we have to enjoy what we're doing. One of the big reasons people identify as a foodie is because they enjoy it. So can you enjoy being a healthy? Can you enjoy being someone who eats in a way that supports you metabolically? Can you enjoy being someone who takes breaks between meals and fasts for your healing journey? It's changing how you think of yourself. Rather than I'm someone who once in a while kind of ekes out a fast, to start identifying as I'm someone who fasts regularly. You don't have to identify in that exactly what type of fasting you do and how many hours you do, but to start seeing yourself as a faster. Remember many years ago, I decided to do the Couch to 5K running training program. I wanted to run and do a little bit of a distance run. But I remember at the time what was so incongruent for me is I did not see myself as a runner. I was, growing up in elementary school, middle school, high school, I was that person that hated to run. It was like punishment to me. When we had that presidential physical fitness test, it was the most torturous thing. When I was in high school and playing sports, I loved playing the actual game, but please don't make me run to train for it. It was the worst part. So here I was years later deciding I want to start running. I want to do some 5Ks. And mostly I wanted to do it. It was a social thing. I had friends that were all going to run a specific run, so I wanted to be able to do that. But what I found over time, and I did work myself up to completing a half marathon, I had to change it. I couldn't say, I'm going to go out and do a run, but I'm not a runner. I had to start thinking of myself as a runner. What do runners do? They run. What do runners do the day after the race? They run. They do a smaller workout. What do they do? Do they stay out all night before the big run? No, I'm going to go home because I'm a runner. So I had to start thinking of myself as a runner. Now, I didn't have to say I was an Olympic runner. I didn't have to exaggerate it. But without identifying that that's part of who I am, that's something that I do, it's really hard to, like I said, to make that a consistent behavior. Your brain's going to resist it, and it's not going to feel natural, and it's going to be really easy to stop as soon as there's some kind of interference. Let's say, for example, it was raining out. It would be really easy to say, well, I'm not going out in the rain. So I had to think of an alternate plan to fulfill that sense of myself as someone who runs. If you are someone who does yoga, you go on vacation, there's no reason to not do a yoga routine before you start your day because you are someone who does yoga. If you are someone who meditates, you don't have to work so hard anymore to decide, should I do a meditation today? It's part of who you are. It's part of how you see your day going. So working on addressing and changing your identities is a huge piece of creating habits that will stick. So again, just as a kind of summary of these 3 takeaways, and trust me, folks, there are so many valuable things in the book, but these 3 I think are so important to this TFM journey, so important to this weight loss and health journey. Number 1, small lifestyle changes compound over a period of time. 2, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And number 3, habits don't stick unless we alter our identities. I want for all of you to create habits that create long-term change for you. I want you to reach your goals. I want you to reach your health goals and your weight loss goals. And I think if you spend some time really reflecting on these 3 things, am I working on small steps that I can take that will compound over time? Am I creating systems that make these habit changes possible, feasible, sustainable? And am I working on changing my identity, how I see myself, how I interact with other people around these things, how I think about it? Then I think you stand a really good chance of finding the success that you're seeking. I look forward to talking with you again soon in our next episode. Until then, take good care.